Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. We're going through the solo stories here as I'm trying to catch up. Let's see. Last time we did a fairly short one, and there's still two more to go at least. It could very possibly unlock some more. So let's do this mutant mutation. And I guess since Legend of the Starry Dragon was pretty short, the expectation might be that this is fairly short and this one's fairly short. Let's see. Researchers have discovered mysterious creatures from outer space called the mutants. I'm not going to assume that that's pronounced any differently just because it's spelled a little bit differently. As the mysteries of their biology is unraveled, they continue to evolve with both speed and diversity. It's quite possible these creatures have already grown past humanity's ability to control it. So it's almost, you could go old school and say Cthulhu-like, like as far as monsters or aliens or alien-like the movies. Let's see, there's other references I guess you could make. Venom from Spider-Man might be another comparison. Aliens that can evolve. Although technically evolution is multiple generations. This is more, or I assume, individuals that can change in their own lifetime. Many mysteries fill the universe and the unknown and the powers they possess. Now immediately what I'm noticing here is a much nicer looking visual effect compared to the usually pretty low effort visual effects we see in the solo mode, where you just have some stars and some fading in and out of fog. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if this is just the blue orb, slightly modified as far as a secondary currency and then really blown up. Sometimes marveled and feared as a miracle or magic, humanity has embarked on an insatiable quest for knowledge, and with science and technology have revealed many secrets. I guess it's fairly obvious these solo stories are the place where they're training 3D modelers to get better at 3D modeling, considering how, I guess, up until this point, all of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Games would have been, for the most part, 2D animations or very simplistic 3D animations of square cards, with small exceptions when they make a special animation for like a 3D model of the Dark Magician and very famous cards. Still, in 2023, current year argument, it's kind of ridiculous that Konami wouldn't have more skilled people ready and capable of making more complex 3D animations than something that you probably would do in the first half of the first year of a 3D modeling class. Making a sphere, honestly, in Blender 3D probably takes less than a day. Adding a spinning effect and smoke effect to it, maybe a week. It's not really that much of a challenge. And then of course in 3D modeling it's all in the minutia and the details, but in all of these animations there really isn't a lot of minutia and details. In fact, I just think they've probably copied and pasted some of the texture as they were wrapping it around the 3D elements. Whereas a fancier way to do this would definitely have more of a smoke particle effect, where the smoke was actually flowing around in more of a random pattern, instead of it just being a flat 3D texture that has been stretched around the 3D sphere. Moving on. But the mysteries of this world never cease. Now that's an interesting transition where it's growing bigger and changing color. Again, though, it's literally two settings that you would set a keyframe in Blender as like it start at this size and start at this color, and so the size would be a keyframe property and the color would be a keyframe property, and then you would tell it to end after a certain number of seconds or frames to add a much larger size and a different color, and then between those two keyframes 3D modeling software like Blender would just make the middle frames, and then that's all pre-rendered animation, which you would have to hope that they were doing pre-rendered animations for these cutscenes and not trying to do it in engine. I suppose I'm being maybe a little critical considering how this is also designed to display on cell phones, and really cell phones and tablets would be the target market for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, so the graphics couldn't be that amazing if they were in engine. That being said, if they were pre-rendered and you just had what were small clips of, say, even 2 or 4K videos playing in the background, then that really wouldn't be a problem for cell phones, because then on the cell phone versions you would just render down the 4K resolution to like 720p or even 1080p if you're really going to push it videos, and the video quality would be a little less, certainly for the small screens, but people probably wouldn't notice. And that doesn't take up any processing power that might be lackluster in a cell phone. And one of the new mysteries comes crashing down to this planet. Now, arguably, I don't think this is pre-rendered visuals when it really should be. Falling extraterrestrial object observed. This is someone talking. Available personnel must head to the predicted fall site and investigate unidentified object. This might be more influenced around the Guyver series, which was a Japanese, I think originally it was a Japanese live action series. Eventually they made an anime around it. I don't think there was a manga originally. There probably is now. I could be wrong. Usually things start with mangas, comic books, Japanese comic books. With Guyver, there are these spherical orbs, and they it gets implanted in the head of a human, and then it allows him to transform into this monstrous looking armor, and he fights other monsters or alien monsters that start showing up. The Bio Booster armor, Guyver, I think is the full name of it. It's a very old, the live action was a very old movie. Roger, we're heading over now. Down at a identified object that fell in a field. Could this be the first contact with another planet? To unravel this enigmatic entity, experts in various fields from around the world converged. Those are very big words, and 3 E words in a row, which I assume that's not necessary. I would assume there isn't a card called enigmatic entity experts or something like that. It's probably just another example of, in Japanese, it doesn't repeat the same words 3 times, and then when they translated it, they didn't put enough care in it to not make a tongue twister. Not long after, the investigation team covered the site with a temporary dome and begun the observation of the object. Again, my criticism of the story here, in which they are not saying a lot, could be repeated, but in fairness, at least they are somewhat describing the experience. They could definitely have skipped this whole paragraph and moved on to the next one in some of the more short fashions in which they've described the stories previously. Interesting. We have a sound effect, which we get very few of those. And noticeably here, you also have flat 2D animations that really stand out as just not being in the same style as this. This looks like a comic book, where this looks more like a video game. Is this part the eye? It has rigid parts that are hard as steel and soft parts that feel like human organs. Although these are differences in material, it is likely, although there are differences in material, it's likely to be organic material. I don't know if the phrase organic material really means anything scientifically speaking. At a certain point, carbon-based life forms have some similarities, and you could claim that what you're looking at is probably organic if you're an expert, but when you start to talk about something that isn't carbon-based at all, which there are even a few species at the bottom of the ocean in the real world that aren't organic-based and are, I think, carbon-based that they found, that really throws it all out the window. Effectively, any material could be organic in the sense that it could potentially be made by a chemical process of breaking down and combining molecules and by something that we would generally describe as being alive. So it's probably a poor phrase for scientists to use, but whatever. They're trying to tell a story, not be scientifically accurate. Can this be considered a sentient being? And then here you have the immediate jump. They can barely tell if the thing is even alive by the rough general description of life, which that alone is another thing that doesn't have like a scientific description to it. It's too hard to describe. And now they're trying to describe sentience, which that's yet another nebulous term that you can't really define too much, because in particular it could be sentient and thinking and have no organs it can move, no arms, no legs, no fingers, or no external sensors to see the outside world. You could be locked in, blind, deaf, and dumb, even as a human, with all your limbs disabled, and you still would be a sentient being if you were simply just locked into your own head. As time passed, the various investigations have been made. This object, no, this creature, was found to have strange properties not found on this planet. So arguably, they could have just skipped the last few pages of text and just go to this point, because all the dialogue there was really just adding some extra flavor and making it longer. But honestly, it's probably better that they do that and make the stories actual stories instead of incredibly brief narratives that are only a few paragraphs long. By unraveling the ecology of this organism, they may gain some new insight about it. Humans called this object mutant and established a specialized research Institute Mutant Evolution Lab. There is potentially a problem here now that they're using the phrase mutant. It means they can't easily now use the word mutant to parody X-Men characters or do a crossover of X-Men characters, which there is definitely a potential there where Konami could have convinced the likes of Marvel to let the X-Men characters be in the Yu-Gi-Oh card game as a crossover event, because let's face it, X-Men, while very popular in Japan, is not anywhere as popular as it is in the Western world, in the United States and other Western countries. And Yu-Gi-Oh, contrasting that, is not anywhere as popular in the Western countries as it is in Japan, so it would be a decent synergy. And there definitely was a time there where Marvel was hiring out animation studios to make anime versions of direct DVD TV series, miniseries based on their properties, Wolverine and X-Men and things like that. But Yu-Gi-Oh has consistently not really had too many crossovers as far as the cards that they make, and that has also led to some small level of consistency. We haven't ever seen a Yu-Gi-Oh card that gets played that would confuse people because it has Wolverine on it instead of Dark Magician, whereas Magic the Gathering has done a lot of that. Actually, I think there may have been a few crossover cards, but they may only exist digitally too. It's easy enough in tournament play to simply ban special versions of cards that have different art, though, so they could have crossover cards easily enough. There they proceeded with their investigation. There's only one sentence left there. Really didn't tell us anything though about the mutants, so you would expect that there would be more story here, and that is what we're getting. But the only reason they broke up that story is so they could give us more of this secondary currency. And honestly, I don't really appreciate being given the secondary currency, because it just means then I'm going to need more of the secondary currency to unlock a gate, when really they should just get rid of this currency completely and unlock the gates once you reach them, no matter what. We'll get rid of the idea of gates. If you get rid of the idea of gates, you'd save up some space anyways. At the Mutant Evolution Lab, various studies were being conducted day and night in order to make precise observations. The first breakthrough came when they succeeded in culturing the mutant with the advance in analysis of biological structures. Now they manage multiple mutant cultures cultured from the first specimen. So, culture is a weird phrase to use in my mind there. That might be the right term. So they took some cells from the mutant, they put it on basically a petri dish, and then it grew from a petri dish into these other organisms. Yeah, I guess that's probably the right phrase though. In this way, various mutants were created by humans. They all look different too. While they have individual differences, clarification of their shared properties, characteristics, etc. was in progress. Clarification instead of classification. Okay, that's interesting word choice. Again, this is Japanese people. They didn't go over the text with a fine-tooth comb. Look, they're moving as if they were responding to each other. Is it that the mutants' method of communicating with one another? So far, the dialogue between mutants and humans has not been established, but the way mutants seemingly react to each other through sensation. Sensitization. I don't even know if that's a word. Sensitization was observed many times during their experiments. In order to unravel the biology of these organisms, they will take every possible measure and repeat the trial. Currently, the Institute's most notable discovery about the characteristics is the mutant is evolution. So they're almost like Pokemon. But look at this picture here. We have something now that needs to be explained in that we have these weird glowing rocks, and the mutants have tentacles that they seemingly can move, and they're in some kind of floating liquid tank that they can either phase through, or it's a glass they're phasing through. Also, this seems like an eye that's open, where before we just saw kind of a closed or silver ball. In the course of research, mutants were exposed to various organisms and substances. There were many instances that yielded no response, however some caused a reflexive behavior that caused them to rapidly evolve. So we're almost getting down to Pokemon style or Digimon style characters. In the most recent case, it happened when it came in contact with a crystal impregnated with dense energy, which I don't know what kind of crystal you could make that would be impregnated with dense energy. It would be interesting, I suppose, if you could make something like a salt crystal or a quartz crystal and have a lot of electricity inside of it, some kind of like battery almost. But I've never heard of anything like that. And so now we see some lightning effects and a very evolved, more plant-like looking creature. It absorbed the crystal and its body surface hardened. It even displayed a state of overdrive, amplifying and releasing the captured energy. The Institute's defense system managed to quell it, but if the evolution continues, the possibility of the situation getting out of hand cannot be ruled out. Some researchers have complained about the dangers of the research. If another major reflexive action occurs again, there's no certainty that we can control the organism. We should stop the research now. If we go any longer, our research could destroy humanity. Very few researchers, I think, would ever make that argument or try to have that happen. If there was a big accident that happened where it got really powerful, they would just make an argument that they should have better security and be more careful. They'd still want to go forward. But to want to unravel the hidden mysteries and to know everything about this creature drowned those voices, and the study was continued. However, no one could have suspected the danger of what is about to become a reality shortly after. What is about to become a reality shortly after. I think I read that right. That's definitely a weird way of phrasing things. So yeah, they're just giving me secondary currency non-stop instead of cards, which makes me assume there aren't really that many cards based on this. And here we have a playfield that once again seems like it matches the theme of the story. What makes a mutant deck unique? Level 4 or lower mutant monsters such as mutant M005 have the effect of tributing themselves and banishing cards of a determined type, monster, spell, or trap from the hand, or else will they special summon a corresponding level 8 mutant monsters. Special summon mutants in response to the opponent's tactics will bring you closer to victory. So, this is taking the idea of the original game in a lot of ways to the next level. Well, in all fairness, the original Lego game, the original Yu-Gi-Oh game, did not even have a limit that you could only summon up to level 4 star monsters. You could summon like level 9 monsters originally in Yu-Gi-Oh. It was crazy. But after that, before they started to have effect monsters, you would summon level 4 monsters and then level 6 monsters by tributing 1, and then level 8 monsters, or level 5 monsters between level 5 and level 6 monsters by tributing 1 normal monster, and then any level 7 or 8 monsters or higher would take 3 summons. Which even at that, the system doesn't really make sense. It would make more sense that a level 7 monster having 3 stars over a level 3 monster could still be summoned with 1 tribute. Oh yeah, come to think of it, that's actually how it did work, didn't it? You had to tribute monsters with the right amount of stars to do it. So a level 5 monster required a level 4 and potentially level 5 at one point. Yeah, they definitely rethought the rules. For summoning mutant ST46, I clicked and skipped something without reading it. This is slightly different from the activate mutant ST46 effect. The idea of polymerization or special summoning without polymerization, in that it's not coming from an extra stack and you're not just combining 2 generic cards to get some special character. You're getting very specific cards. And arguably, if you were going to make Yu-Gi-Oh! From scratch today, just start over and reboot the series, you would have most characters work this way. That way there would be a lot more variety in decks that people play. People playing mutant decks wouldn't be able to add generic cards. They'd only be able to play the mutant decks or cards with mutant in the name. Add mutant fusion to your hand from the deck. Of course, it throws everything out the window if there is an actual card called mutant fusion, because then effectively you are just doing a ritual summon and just not calling it a ritual summon. Mutant ST46 contribute itself and banish 1 more spell or trap card to special summon a specific monster. Banish mutant GB88 from your hand and special summon mutant beast from your deck. Yeah, I bet the level 8 monsters have more generic names other than these ridiculous numbered names. There's a lot of that in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you have ridiculous numbers after names. Now you have mutant monsters with different attributes on your field and in your hand. Activate mutant fusion and fusion summon mutant synthesis. Now I kind of question if there would have been ever a Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime series around mutants, because that would have really felt too much like Pokemon for its own good. We could have done a few episodes around the idea, but that's about as much as I would assume they would do. So now we are special summoning something even bigger. And arguably that may be the end of the line, and that's just a 2500 attack with 2000 defense, which defense barely ever matters. Now activate mutant synthesis and destroy your opponent's monster. So we're back to the point where in these puzzle tutorial things, the enemy has the exact amount of health that you would need to defeat them. It was weird in the last solo story that they had a little bit more health or a little bit less health. And while this character, they did have a character face down, they didn't react to you summoning something or activating an effect like this last solo story. I can't help but feel like that is a pretty simplistic concept, and yeah, it just doesn't feel like there's that many cards they even want to give you. Which makes me a little afraid that what's going to happen is we're going to be told a very short beginning of a story here, and this may be the next solo story that has a continuation. For the most part, I think the move is to put traps face down. Let's see. We have Mutant Fusion, Downbeat, and Psi Frame Epsilon. So this is when a trap card activates. So we could summon this. We could special summon this. This is probably the one you want to play. 500 versus 500. Yeah, I'm gonna select this one. Then I'm gonna activate this. And then let's see. Ideally, I probably want one of these lower things, but I think I can't do that. Okay, we'll try this. We'll take the big one, and then we'll hope that we can do this. Okay, can do that. Can't do anything with that, can't do anything with that. And then that's the end of our first turn, in which we can't attack anyways. So now it really is just going to come down to this. Go ahead and chain the trap. We'll just go ahead and special summon this. Generally speaking, if I saw this playfield, I would have just assumed this was like a dark magician or something. I wouldn't have really expected it to be these mutants, or really I would have not been able to even notice that they were mutants. It's just not zoomed in enough. And if of course, if you're playing, I don't know if I really should have said yes to that. Yeah, I'm like banishing my own cards for no reason. I clicked yes stupidly. Of course, if you were playing on a cell phone, you wouldn't likely be able to see these little things on the edge as much either. They are just making for more of a widescreen 16:9 ratio, where normally a cell phone would potentially be more of a 9:16 ratio or something close to that. Let's try this again. Then it's probably not worth it to special summon either one of these. I think if I attacked with a 2400 to a 2400 defense, I'd destroy it, but I'm not sure, so in an abundance of safety, I'm just gonna straight up banish this card. Really? Trying to be fancy here and it's not working. This is definitely part of the problem with playing decks that are just incredibly similar, is that you are going to just have the computer knowing what to do a lot better than this. And at this point I probably should just surrender or retry, but for YouTube's sake we'll play along. There's just not, I think, too much that can happen here that would turn this around. Maybe we'll get incredibly lucky. This field spell feels like it is in particular designed in such a way to let you draw more cards in case you run out of cards. Well, I somehow managed to turn it around. Of course, he just turned it around on me again. I don't know. I guess that's the point, though, is that I shouldn't know what to do. Although arguably the game should. Now, when you look at this field, this clearly was a field designed after pendulum summoning became a thing, because you can kind of see the pendulum symbols there, where I don't see that very often otherwise on other fields, or I haven't ever noticed it before. But if I could be a little critical of the design here, this pattern should probably tessellate a little bit better so that the wires always connect. Seems like they've made one design and somewhat rotated it around and squished and stretched it, and then just the same fans with some spinning and some not. And the fan spinning in that extra motion is probably a bad idea, because that's just a visual distraction. I have no idea what should banish. That's in the same way the reason why I don't like these motions and the battle damage here is also drastically different than even the battle damage you usually see. So then when you have like a mate character like this, that doesn't really play any big role because that's my customized mate character. But then they've added a special card backing that I usually wouldn't have. So I don't know why they bothered to add this guy. And the only reason I have this as my mate character is because it doesn't make any sound on its own, where a lot of the other mate characters do. The mate characters in particular is like the worst idea that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has, in which it's trying to get you to spend money on dancing little animated models that are irritating at best. At best you find them entertaining, at worst you find them irritating. I have to admit, I'm not particularly interested or enthralled with the mutant concept. I think possibly it could be a nice, very steady idea that could have been expanded upon a lot more. Particularly if it was very early in the first couple of years of Yu-Gi-Oh! That would have made a lot of sense. But at the current 25 years into Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game that we are in, 25th anniversary, it's just not anywhere as wild and crazy as, say, the Zodiac Tri-Brigade deck is. So you are running into a very kind of slow, dull experience. Meanwhile, if I fail, I still have every opportunity here to just do this instead. Play my standard winning deck and with a standard stable yet very boring and repetitive way of playing that takes way more card plays to do way more stuff. I'm not sure if I really got anything here. I do. Okay, that worked. Since I played second, I am in a very good position to possibly not win in this turn, but I can see myself doing this. The right way to play this, by the way, I never do it. It's just too slow, is to always bring this out in most cases, so you can activate its ability, which would then let you summon this. So you have yet another thing on the field. Then the move is potentially to either summon this or summon this. And in this case, I think it's probably better to summon this. So then this will count as 2. Then you can do that. Then you can do that. Then you activate his ability. And activate his ability. And because his ability is different, then that gives us yet another thing to do. To banish. So we're at like 5,000 now. Ready to go. So not a one-turn victory, but definitely in a very good position on your first move. With Zeus acting as a potential counter to anything they try to do, and a backup here. There's also enough things here to summon another one of these if I just summon this or this. And arguably I can next turn summon this and special summon this. So it's almost like there's absolutely nothing that this person can do with even 5 cards. We'll see. Like, the safest bet as ending his turn is to simply just activate this, discard 2 cards, and otherwise clear the field. Add yet another card to my hand. And so now we have like a backup on the Ash Blossom. So theoretically we could waste some time here. I could activate this, discard this, discard this. That would have even more things in the graveyard. Then I could use that to summon another 3,000 and all of that. But unless he had some kind of quick play spell, I can just attack and win. And see, this wasn't even supposed to be a challenging challenge. I just probably ran into a little bit of struggle playing with the loner deck. And this is an interesting problem we've now run into. This is going to give us the only card, Mutant, that we had, because I needed to win with the loner deck. So let's just go back and we'll have to play with the loner deck. I guess I should have paid more attention there, which at this point I think I will try and pay a little bit more attention since we now know we have to win. I was about to say that maybe I even have to play the next solo story, which that wouldn't make the most sense. It did feel like early on that may have been the way things worked. Mutant Evolution Lab. Can we get Mutant Evolution Lab as a spell card? I don't think we can. So instead, let's just take the biggest attack. See if we can do something with it. And this also can special summon. Tribute this card and banish 1 mutant card from your hand, special summon monster from your hand or deck based on the banished cards. If it's a mutant, it's Mutant Beast. If it's a spell, it's Mutant Mist. And if it's a trap, it's a Mutant Arsenal. Or we could fusion summon, banishing from your extra deck. Or we could... I don't think there's a big argument to do these special summons. What does this do? It's always if you tribute a monster, you get Mutant Beast. If you tribute a spell, it's Mutant Mist. And if you tribute a trap. So I think the best move here is activate this effect. And then let's get rid of the spell. And then get that here. Then, why did I take damage? We don't have any other special summon thing. So the only other thing here would be to try and get Mutant Arsenal on the field and see if Beast, Mist, and Arsenal all together maybe special summon into something amazing. doesn't really seem like there is anything like that. Two mutants with different attributes. Okay. But as far as doing the most amount of damage, this worked. Why did I take damage? Though when I summoned it, you lose life points equal to special summon monster's original attack. Okay. So the center point mutant as a card, very useful, but also has a negative aspect. Or arguably mutant M05 is better. And I don't know if there really is a reason why you'd take the 2-star mutant M05 and then play that spell card that reduced it and replace it with a 1-star mutant card. I don't know if there's really a strategy there. Maybe the spell card actually lets you summon it, not just replace it. Let's see. We'll summon this just because we have 3 of them. And then special summon everything that's been banished. We'll take that as a spell and see if maybe that's a showstopper action. ST46, M5. Let's go ahead and start with this, and then get rid of this. And then summon this here from the deck instead of from your hand. Nothing special there yet. Spell a trap card. Mutant monster. Let's go spell a trap card. Go ahead and banish. Guess this. And banish that card. So we may be banishing and banishing. Okay. Can I play 2 of these spell cards at the same time? I hope I'm not misreading what this spell card actually does. It's a field spell. Place 1 mutant monster from the hand on the bottom of the deck and draw 1 card? Sure. Special summon this psychic monsters. Let's see. Are we getting close enough for victory now? Alright. To special summon this one, we need 3 monsters. So that's 3,000 for something that would be less than 3,000. This would need 3 monsters too. So this might be, when you special summon this, this might be the point where special summoning one of these or one of these makes sense. And that's why they're in the deck. Just see what happens. Alright. That moved us back to our main phase, because I think we triggered that exactly at the beginning of our battle phase. So it let us make some changes, which the rules are kind of hard to keep and to understand and figure out, I would say, in Yu-Gi-Oh! As far as the phases. And arguably the phase system itself should be rethought. I'm not 100% sure you need a main phase 2 as much as you could just have some cards that say at the beginning of your end phase you can activate a few effects. And I'm not sure if you specifically need to say that the draw phase is its own separate phase compared to it just being the start of the main phase 1. Try here. So I think we want this one. And this really should just win, so we won't do anything else. We'll just attack with this. Or arguably I could have attacked with this and then won with that. And that would have been even a little bit safer. So yeah, it wasn't supposed to be that difficult, but even at that, on a second try, it was fairly difficult. And since we got both victories, that's now going to be marked as completed. And then that's going to leave us with 50 resources. So now we have a loner deck with Dimensional Fusion or Macrocosmos to change things. And we can earn this card protector card back in this icon, neither of which are really that interesting. Let's play once, probably lose, and then beat it with my Zodiac Tri-Brigade, and then we'll play the other one once. Inherently, when you see these solo story elements, though, it kind of highlights that there's not enough cards in the themes to make a good deck, and now we have this aloof lupine, I think being werewolf or wolf, probably just wolf, and this metaphysics Ragnarok card. So if we were to stick to just our standard thoughts, then you would play the cards we just saw. Which one of these has the least attack? This? And we would kind of just make an assumption that these cards are just used as cannon fodder to special summon and other things. So fusion summon. Now we'll risk activating this just to get 100 more attack. It very rarely becomes a situation where having a card in the extra monster zones, which were added later in Yu-Gi-Oh, helps you. Like, there is definitely a scenario where you could have 5 monsters here and still not be able to do 8,000 damage in one turn, but odds are fairly low. I don't know if this is gonna work, but we'll see. He's summoning something bigger. And then he's reacting to my summon, canceling it and banishing it. And getting even stronger with field spell. Yeah. I may very well just be doomed already. Seems like the only thing you could do is summon that again. Then activate this and then banish that, I guess. It gets me at 3,000. Which is still not high enough, so I can only hope that something could be triggered with this trap. There we go. So we'll get rid of 3 monsters that were in the graveyard and banished. That gets me to 35, which still doesn't help me. It's very possible that there's almost no counter spell here. Let's see. Banish 1 metaphysics card. Just banish this to banish that. Let's see. Don't think there's really anything here. This IP Masquerena card might be something, but I don't think it's much. Link summon 1 monster using materials you control, including this. You can use this once per turn. A link monster that is used as material cannot be destroyed by your opponent's effect. Doesn't seem like much there. These other two don't seem like much. But we've turned this around, so maybe if he doesn't have any more cards to play, we might do alright. That being said, he has 2 options in his hand where I have 0 options in my hand. I have 2 monsters in the field and 1 trap, which the trap may get me a 3rd monster on the field as a continuous trap every turn. He also has a spell field card. He has nothing in his graveyard. I have 5 cards in my graveyard, but I don't think any of these cards activate based on the graveyard being in the graveyard. Let's see. So he's trying to draw a new card, and so I'll activate on that. And we'll go ahead and special summon this. Just to see if that does anything different. And then we'll just banish the spell card again. Or the trap card again. Seems fairly obvious that these mutants, as an idea, are supposed to be pretty weak. Let's see. 500 for each monster it points to. So it could get up to 1500, pointing forward to the lower corners. If this monster was here, it could get 500, otherwise it's only going to get 1000. Or Blackluster Soldier. Let's see. When this card destroys an opponent in battle, you can activate one of these effects. It gains 1500. It can attack his second turn. It can banish a card on the field. They would need 3 monsters to do that. So I don't think any of those are particularly great candidates. Best case scenario, you take this attack here, and then the combined attack of these two will win for you. So we won with the loan, so now we'll do the 5-star challenge, highest difficulty, and we'll get a different icon, which is still valueless, or we could get 200 crystals. It would be really nice if you could grind this out and just play these several times, or even if there was some kind of limitation where you could only play them once per month, instead of just daily quests being your only focus for extra crystals. But yeah, that's not an option. Pause now, I guess, if you want to read all of this. Seems like this deck will emphasize some evolution of XYZ summoning, which I feel like XYZ summoning may have been a concept that directly evolved from what is happening here, except for the difference being XYZ cards have kind of tighter limitations on how they can be special summoned from the extra deck, and these mutants are summoning things from your hand deck. Obviously it's kind of it may not be obvious, actually. I say that too often. It's kind of a nerf, because this being able to be summoned from the deck reduces the number of cards in your deck, which reduces the chances of you drawing a bad card that you don't need at that specific point. So you have a, I don't know if you would technically call it a card draw advantage, but I definitely would think of it as a card draw advantage by pulling something from the deck instead of the more limited 15 extra cards that only have a specific number of extra cards you could even have as an option. Guess technically what you want to do here is banish the weaker of the cards and hold on to the stronger ones in case you're just going to normal summon the stronger ones. This is a new card. Face Up Water character. I don't know if I could have a Face Up Water character. This guy would be a Face Up Water character. So I could summon this, and then if something got triggered, I could summon this. And we've got another water themed character. Which apparently this can just be special summoned. Now we have some XYZs for 2100, 000, or 2600. Let's go with number 37, Hope Woven Dragon Spider. These are the numbered cards that I was talking about before, as far as you start to just see a number. Of course, they should probably just put a number sign and not the word number. In Japanese, I'm sure it doesn't take up this much space, but you can definitely see in English how the text is just getting squished quite a bit. So all of those XYZ characters very possibly are direct evolutions. Which, if that is the case, then we also have a general idea now of where we are at with the solo stories, in that we are at the point when XYZ cards were introduced, which is fairly late. Let's see. When any player declares an attack, you can detach one XYZ material from the card. All monsters lose 1,000. Wish I'd known that before. That didn't help me much, though. And this wasn't destroyed, so that worked very poorly for me. Even if I had attacked this guy, he would have just activated this. Anyways. He's going to be very close to a one-turn kill. And yeah, that awkwardly just puts you in this situation where one more try I probably would win, for sure, but I'm not 100% certain of that, so just play Zodiac Tri-Brigade to win, so we can win on a victory, and then we'll wrap up the story with the final goal flag, and then that'll be it. If anything, going through these solo stories has really just proven that the Zodiac Tri-Brigade strategy works with almost everything incredibly well. We just see evidence over and over again that it almost always wins against anything that is even slightly old as a concept. That being said, it actually doesn't really work as well as you would think in the current meta. There is room for improvement once you start getting up to high levels of gold. Let's see. Do I want to sacrifice anything or do anything here? I could do this. This is probably your best bet. Is to do that and that. Get rid of that. And then I think you want to leave it at that, because I don't think I can activate this effect and discard these two cards and special summon another one of these or anything like that. So that puts us in a pretty decent starting spot, although it also potentially just is too many cards to play. Right, this allows for a special summon here, which didn't really do anything. I should have special summoned the other one from the graveyard. Go ahead and activate this and see if this tries to get countered. And then we'll go ahead and activate this and toss this to destroy that, whatever that trap card was. And we'll do this. And then from that we can summon all of these. In this case we could use more material, but it doesn't benefit you to do that. I'm gonna swap positions here so it's pointing to this. And then I guess we'll do this. This we don't activate very often, and I just stupidly activated it when I didn't need to, so we'll just destroy our other card. Meanwhile, we'll activate this from the hand and attach it there. I thought that was a different card. Okay. Now we should have enough in the graveyard to banish 4 cards, and we'll just go ahead and do that. Summon this, which can only be placed in a point where this is pointing because of the link summoning rules, which arguably this isn't quite enough to win, but it might be. I want to actually do the math. Let's just see. Nope, it is enough to win. Good. Probably played a little poorly there, but when you have such an overpowered deck, it just doesn't matter. Of course, when you run into a situation like this and you have an overpowered deck that defeats the solo stories easily, and yet it's still not really competitive at the higher platinum and diamond levels of ranked play, then it really just shows that there's an imbalance there, that the power creep between current ranked play and Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel is way higher than what the actual challenge is in the solo stories, because they really were expecting the game to be a little bit easier. And generally speaking, I think that would be better if they could make Yu-Gi-Oh! A little bit easier and make it more of a kid-friendly experience instead of 25 Well, let's face it, if Yu-Gi-Oh's been out for 25 years, then it's probably 35-year-olds plus that are at the high levels of ranked play that have been playing Yu-Gi-Oh since the beginning. It definitely makes an argument for the idea of rebooting Yu-Gi-Oh and making a more easier version of it for kids, or having a different type of gameplay that makes it a little bit easier. Of course, that is the problem with any long-running card game, is that the people who stick around are super powerful, and they're the super fans who spend most of the money and fund the hobby, whereas trying to get new people into the hobby is incredibly difficult because there's too much to learn and it's too expensive. And little kids, 10-year-olds now, aren't going to have the easiest of experiences playing against 35-plus-year-old Yu-Gi-Oh players. Let's finish the story. One day at the Mutant Evolution Lab, alarms rang out in a shrill tone. The first report was that the mutant destroyed the incubator of its own volition, and other individuals were following suit. The mutants that escaped from their incubators began to absorb the variety of things in the Institute and had begun to evolve rapidly. I recently just played a game called Prey, where you have these typhons that have a bunch of abilities that kind of look like this, although they didn't seemingly absorb too much material. There was like one typhon called a Weaver that, slight spoiler for the game, could absorb humans and then make another typhon called Phantoms from humans. Otherwise, the main typhons you would run into were mimics that could, spoiler for the first hour or two of the game, mimic other objects. So you'd walk up to like a coffee cup and it then would transform into a monster and attack you when you got close to it. If they could absorb different types of materials in the world there, that would have been an interesting idea. And if they ever made a sequel to Prey, which they probably won't, that would have been an idea. Anyways, back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Some absorbed the animals that were quarantined in different sectors and evolved into a beast-like form. So these are just the cards we had already played. Some developed a mechanized form with robotic arms and incubators from absorbing parts of the lab's equipment. So there is a chameleon ability, obviously, in these mutants, that they are adapting to the environment and things they see around the environment, although they inherently all seem to be adapting for fighting, which that's really not evolution there. You should adapt for passing on your genetics, so procreating is more important. Surviving up to the point where you can procreate is evolutionarily beneficial, but if you die the exact second after you pass on your DNA, evolution does not care. And that's why you have things like the praying mantis males getting their heads potentially ripped off after mating with the females, and that still being a very viable, scientifically, evolution-wise way for the species to continue. The next report stated that the defense systems were compromised and it was deemed impossible to contain them within the laboratory. I wish these stories potentially would go into more backstory as far as were these mutants an alien weapon from like some other species, or genetically engineered weapon from other alien species to attack humans in a slow play, because that would really work fairly well. If humans were seeing via radio waves a very dangerous alien species that was another solar system away, so hundreds of light years, thousands of light years away, and we just somehow could determine that even in 1,000 years traveling at near light speed, they would be a danger. The only way we could potentially attack them, short of having some faster than light travel, would be to try and engineer something like a common cold or some kind of genetically engineered organism like the alien species in Aliens uh, that would be able to be shot off on a rocket towards their planet and then grow and attack and evolve. Although even the aliens in Aliens, the xenomorphs, I don't know if they were specifically genetically engineered to be weapons or if they were more just a species that somehow evolved very well to be very adaptable to survival and attacking other people. In addition, all the staff were notified and promptly evacuated and abandoned the facility. The fruit of our labor. That's why I said it was dangerous. Here we can see they're just using the same flat 2D images. Again, what a great day to be able to witness with my own the moment of evolution that shouldn't have happened on this planet system. Hurry up and close the shutters. Don't trail behind. The workers made a desperate attempt to escape the lab as the mutants continued to evolve and destroy to the point where it could only be described as an outbreak. In the meanwhile, the evolutions of the mutant were just entering its next phase. The mutants started to absorb one another, consolidating all that was gained from their evolutionary processes. Soon it began to transform itself into a more gigantic life form. Eventually the mutant destroyed and grew to the size that exceeded the laboratory that they were confined within. Is there no longer any way for humans to do anything about this newborn gargantuan life form? They're reusing the same sound effect. Although there are many mysteries left unanswered about the mutant, but at the very least we can conclude that encouraging its evolution is extremely dangerous. I hereby leave these records of our research in the hopes that it will be beneficial to mankind. Godspeed to the rest of humanity. Buzz. So this was all a transmission being put out at the last second, which that's a interesting twist for the solo stories that have not really had any kind of twists before. In reality, though, if there was some kind of alien life form that could mutate a lot and it came to Earth, it would have to be able to fight every kind of virus and bacteria and potential allergen it might have from a whole bunch of things just floating in the air on Earth, on top of potentially just pollution too. Like, there are billions and billions of years of evolution that have happened to make even the common cold, the flu, something that a new species with no defenses against, very vulnerable. It's frankly highly unlikely that a new species on Earth would be able to survive unless its biology is completely antithetical and it just does not react at all to carbon-based life forms at all. So Earth is almost certainly more deadly to a new species than a new species would be deadly to Earth. I guess in a lot of ways that's probably much closer to the movie The Thing, by which I mean the remake of the movie The Thing, because there was one in the 1940s, John Carpenter, I think, The Thing, not the remake of The Thing that came out later. And honestly, I think I may have even heard that they were going to remake the remake of the remake into a TV series, taking a fourth bite at the apple. So we've unlocked a new selection pack, but at this point I've pretty much gotten all of the secret packs, not selection pack. Like, I've pretty much unlocked all of them, and none of them are so low in the number of cards that I would choose to spend the in-game crystals to collect them. I guess the Guyver comparison was not particularly that accurate because the mutants did not merge with a human. You weren't fighting other monsters. They could potentially make it more of a Guyver story if they expanded. You can see in this secret pack you've got a lot of like dinosaur characters showing up. It all feels a little ADHD, frankly, as far as the art styles. And I assume it's not just one person that says, alright, now I want to make dragons, or now I want to make mutant monsters, or now I want to make dinosaurs. I assume what Konami is doing is they are hiring some very, very low paid animators to just draw interesting characters and giving no other guidance or rules to it than that. So yeah, let's go ahead, since we won't open a secret pack, and yeah, the last episode I recorded I guess 23 hours ago, since there's still an hour on that, let's go ahead and open 10 packs of legacy cards just so we have a card pack opening, and then that will be the end of this episode. And that leaves me, I imagine, with one more short story. One more solo story I could do, and honestly I could probably make an episode around that, and that's perfectly fine. Worst case scenario, if I did all the solo story stuff, then at the end of this month, in 21 days or so, I would just have to go back and play 3 of the solo story missions that I've already done, or the ones I have not succeeded at yet, which that may also be my next step, is that I may just off screen decide to play a lot of solo stories, because I'm in this weird position where I just don't quite feel ready to start doing a pre-recorded series after this. I'm taking a little bit of a break. See, this card got this foil overlay effect, but it's very unnoticeable. Like, you have an extra border that gets shiny, and then you have maybe just a little bit of glowing every now and then. But look, it glows, and then it's 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi before it glows again. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. It's like, if you're just glancing at the card, you easily wouldn't even notice the glow at all, because it's happening so slow. And it would be very repetitive to say it, but I have to point it out that the way these cards are presented is still very bad, in that in a 16:9 ratio, particularly when there's only 2 cards, when you open a card, these are incredibly small, and even when you click on it, it's still incredibly small. Whereas ideally you'd want this art to be giant. What you would want to have happen is when a card opens, it would be the full screen at the top here, and then it might fly off the screen and then swirl back towards the background and then line up here in the smaller side so that you could see it's being lined up. But the first impression should have a lot more fanfare and it should be a lot bigger. And then this second way of presenting things is trying to be consolidated, but it's not particularly any more useful. Like at a certain point there should probably be a button that just toggles it into text and shows it that way. Or it should just start in this mode and then you click X and then you have to click X again. This is the best way that the cards are being presented. The first impression should probably just be the art, though. Let's just make people feel good about the cards. Then the second presentation should be the details. So if it was the art and then there was an arrow here that would collapse or toggle the description, that's probably a good way that they could have done it. Also, at any point when looking at the cards, if it was a nice big card and then there was a toggle button on the side for a description. Of course, you also don't have related cards shown, so it's pretty much impossible to figure out if there's a plasma series of cards, and plasma ball might thematically or in effect synergize with other cards, or what other cards it actually would synergize with. Whereas it would take some good programming, but it's not super hard when you have, say, a card like this that says it can special summon one monster, so therefore it could this should synergize with other monsters, which that's not very specific. Or here's a very specific one: when your opponent declares a direct attack, banish one Destiny hero monster. So this should have a related cards button somewhere here, probably right about here, if you're, since this is just empty space where every Destiny hero card could scroll. And yeah, in the mobile cell phone version, maybe you don't have all these effects, but on PC, being able to do more of that would be useful. Certainly would definitely help in trying to make a deck. Otherwise, if I was trying to make a Destiny deck right now, I'd just have to type in the word Destiny and search for every card that has Destiny in the name and hope they synergize. Which honestly, it would just be easier to look online for a Destiny hero deck. Some list somewhere that would say best Destiny hero deck you can cheaply make. So yeah, nothing is really stopping me from making another episode and doing the solo story, like the daily quest to clear the solo story challenges and play it 3 times easily could be accomplished by just coming back and clearing out all of these non-completed stories. And even if I go the extra mile and complete all of these early, then I could just play again at 3 stories. The easiest one would be to play solo player deck challenges, because there's no story around that. So like, if I just have the daily quest, you just do this, this, and this, and you don't even have to win. In fact, I don't even think you really have to play. I think you can actually just surrender after you start the game, and it counts. So, but spending your time doing the solo modes gets you 40 crystals and absolutely nothing else. So, yeah. If anything, I should probably play a little bit of ranked play and try and get some of these other things done off screen. And then Duel Live for 5. Pathetically small amount just to watch somebody else play a game. As far as the overall lifetime missions, though, doing solo really doesn't do anything for you. It may potentially increase your duelist level a little bit, but not a lot. And at this rate, if I'm at 32 out of 50 a year into playing this game, it's probably going to take another year before I get to level 50 at least. Anyways, I just realized we're going long. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to further follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.